Okay, well, thank you guys for coming to watch television on a big screen on a Saturday. We really appreciate it. For people who don't know me, I'm Catherine Goldschmidt. This is my friend and colleague, Nicola Daley. We'll do some more formal introductions in a second, but I just wanted to briefly say, because usually these things are one DP, screens their work, another DP asks them questions, and obviously you've come here today and you've watched both of our work, and there's nobody else here, so we're gonna just interview each other and hopefully turn it into more of a conversation. And then there'll be time for questions at the end. So that's the sort of broad format. Anything else I should say before we get started? Okay, so to introduce Nicola Daley BSC ACS properly, Nicola's she was the lead DP on both season 5 and 6, which is this one of The Handmaid's Tale. And this is the last season, which is exciting. She also shot on Halo season 2, which is another big visual effects action based on a video game show. And her feature film credits include Benediction, which Terrence Davies directed. And what else? She's the recipient of the Women in Film and Television Craft Award. And she was also inducted into the ACS Hall of Fame. So give it up for Nicola.
Thank you. Yes, thank you guys for coming. I'm going to introduce Katie. Katie Goldschmidt ASC BSC. And Katie shot many things, which I won't all name, but amongst them, The Last of Us season 2, House of the Dragon season 1 and 2, Renegade Nell for Disney, Doctor Who, all sorts of amazing projects. And she's been nominated for an Emmy and an ASC award. So give it up for Katie. So I'm just going to start off by saying, wow, I don't know if my heartbeat's still going after that, but I'm like, I've seen it 3 times and I'm still like, whew. But it strikes me when I watch both of them, actually, that the sort of dystopian future of America kind of ties them together, which is really interesting, that sort of futuristic, 2 very different worlds, but they're sort of tied in that thematically. So I wanted to start off by asking you, Katie, how, because you didn't work on season 1, but you worked on season 2, how did you and Mark sort of talk about, was there sort of a Bible of the look of the show when you started, or is there kind of a framework for when you go in as a new DP, and how do you discuss that with your director?
Yeah, well, so, Mark, who was my first director on this is my first episode in the show. I shot 2, 4, and 7 out of 7. And so Mark, Marla, and I, we definitely obviously watched season 1, loved season 1, tried to study it and figure out, its bits and pieces. As far as there being a Bible, the main thing was like, it's a handheld show, it's a grounded show, and like what you were talking about, like this dystopian, sort of either near future or like alternate reality. I think on this show, the approach is like, just keep it grounded and keep it feeling very real. And because it's based on a video game, I think they're also, trying to keep you sort of close to characters and, leading and following and experiencing from their point of view. So we definitely picked up on all of that. That was definitely in it.
Did they give you like a boot camp? On Halo, they gave us like a boot camp. This is the video game and this is the world. And did they do that for you?
Not really. The assumption was definitely that we were familiar with the game. And some scenes, specifically referenced the game, like the scene with the fence, which I know we can talk about it later. That's specifically from the game. Joel's death is in the game, but that's an example where Mark and I watched how that works in the game. And actually, when he first comes into the chalet, that's all done in a oneer, and Abby sort of reveals who she is, and we watched that and we thought, could we do that? No, because actually there's so much more happening in the script. The part with Dina and the what do you call it? What's it called? Frostbite. Like little bits like that. There's a lot of detail that's in the script, and so it's the other thing about it is not only is the entire show handheld, but it's also predominantly a 3-camera show, and so there's a lot of emphasis on the details of the world. I'm sure you probably noticed there's lots of inserts, and so all of that is like part of the world building. But we should talk about, because what's cool is that your shows just couldn't be more different, I feel. And what, so you want to talk about the sort of broad strokes looks of Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah, it's interesting when you start on Handmaids, because I did season 5 and they said to me, if you only shoot June's point of view and what June's feeling, then you've shot the show. So they really come at it from you don't have to cover everybody's experience in the scene. I mean, we do a lot, but we shoot in most of the episodes except for the beginning. This one was 12 days. In the middle, if you're shooting the middle ones, you get 10 days. How many days did you get, Kate?
We had 24 for this, and there's like 12 second unit days. So yeah, it's more, yeah. So
the way that we do Handmaids, I think, in such a cinematic way, is that we don't shoot all the coverage, and it is really freeing as a cinematographer, because it's the emphasis is really on how the camera can tell the story, and so really you sit down with the director and really work out what is this scene about. You get under the skin of the scene and the character's journey for that scene, and then you work out because there's a million places you could put the camera, right, but what's the best place to put it. So in terms of a framework of a look, it's got Kubrick-esque wide shots, a lot of symmetry, and then a lot of handheld close-ups, and a lot of sort of right down the barrel on June, so much so that it's become kind of a bit of a parody in the online world. It's got that sort of emotive handheld, and then the big sort of super wide shots.
And the color and the lighting also seems to be like so sort of specific and like a little bit like heightened from reality as well, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I started on the show, when they interviewed me, I kind of said that I'm a big color fan, as you can probably tell. And I wanted to bring colour a bit back into the show. I felt like it had gone a bit monochromatic, and I said that in my interview. And Lizzie Moss, who was directing a bunch of episodes then and was interviewing me, said that, she would love that. And it's kind of the basis of the whole thing, because obviously you've got the handmaids in the red and the wives in the teal and the blue. So you've already got that colour contrast, that warring. So I sort of wanted to play on that and, have the moonlight and the warm lights. And so I take that through most of the scenes.
I loved seeing it here. Actually, it came across so wonderfully, especially like that reception scene where you have all the blue light in the background, which I don't know if you want to talk about that. I love that. And that's a location, right?
Yeah. The reception was, I think, 4-5 day shoot. And that's a real location, so we were doing night shoots, and the set dressing was a little champagne colour, and so I wanted to put in the blue backlights behind the screen that's covering a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want to see. And then obviously we had a lot of practicals, so we tested a bunch of those, all the beaded things that are hanging down.
I love it. I love the design too, because there's something, I think we talked about this before, but like as far as like making it feel sort of otherworldly, because it feels like the restrictive hairstyles and costuming seems like from the past, and then the lighting, like the actual practicals, feel sort of 80, like it makes it just feel of a different place and time, which I think is wonderful.
Gilead's always felt a bit like that. It's always felt, if you've seen very early seasons when it's mostly in Gilead, it's all wallpapered sets and sort of old-fashioned set dressing and stuff. So, and the sort of idea of the beam of light is very, we use mole beams all the time. It's very, it's supposed to represent that sort of freedom that you can't quite reach, that beauty that you're sort of trapped inside when she was a handmaid and she was in Gilead. Yeah. Obviously here she's gone back in undercover, but she's, it's kind of that thing where you just can't reach outside.
Yeah.
But Katie, tell me about the ski lodge.
Oh, God.
Because I know Katie's because that was a real location.
Yeah, that was a real location. So from like beautiful streaming light to like not wanting any streaming light ever. And that location has, floor at 2-story big big ass windows that are all south facing. And they picked it before Mark and I started. And my first reaction was, oh dear, why is this not a set?
Why isn't this a studio?
Why is this not a studio? Because basically we were daylight dependent there, obviously. We were shooting in the winter, so we had restricted hours. Those scenes are 100% about the actors and about the performances, and you just want to give them the set and stand back. And in a location where the sun is literally just changing every second and is streaming through, which is absolutely the wrong mood. I was very like, well, I basically have to turn this into a studio in that case. And it took some explaining on my part with the line producer, because, obviously they thought it was, a reasonably sized location. But no, we needed a construction crane, 40 by 60 out the window, like a lot of sun control basically in there, because we shot for a week. And I think maybe the first couple of days were fine, but then it got really sunny, and so it was my personal nightmare a little bit. But then we figured it out basically, and it was our first week of shooting too, which was exciting. Yeah.
Did you sort of broach it when you went on at the beginning and said, could we do studios, or any way we could change it? Like, how did that conversation?
Yeah. Well, Mark and I both basically, pleaded with the producer. And because of, where things were, and that was up front specifically for Pedro's schedule, which was obviously very busy. And so it was either like we shoot it in that location when it's scheduled, or we don't shoot it until June. And that, so it was like we had to, basically, we were locked in. And the producer said to us something like, anyway, I'm sorry.
At least they apologize.
Yeah.
At least they apologize.
And make it work. So we made it work. And obviously, there's VFX help out those windows sometimes. And, when it got really sunny, then we were putting up, gray screens as well when we're facing the windows. Because basically what Mark didn't want to do, and I didn't want to do it either, is shoot, it was very important to him to shoot in priority order for performance. And so we weren't dictating, oh, well, it's supposed to be rainy this morning, cloudy this morning, let's shoot out the windows, whatever that is. Like, no. We were definitely shooting in performance order, no ifs, ands, or buts. So, and I think you can tell.
I mean, it looks amazing for, to say that you had to control the sun. That's like, in terms of it, because it's obviously the death of Joel, so was there a lot of pressure? There must have been a lot of pressure on that scene, because it's such a huge character journey and character finish for him.
Yes. Well, that was just it. I think we definitely felt the pressure of that moment and getting that moment right, and then there's this other battle thing that happens,
just a small
little, and so that was that's also a challenge, right? Because inevitably, that takes up all your focus, because one scene is, humans talking in a room, and the other is like, oh my God, VFX and special effects and stunts and, and second unit and all these things that have to be arranged. And so in prep, it's like you're just inevitably spending so much of your time talking about that. But you don't want to lose sight of the thing that A, you're shooting first, B is the emotional heart of the story. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And so, so we really did try to not lose sight of that, basically. Yeah.
And it's, how did you guys storyboard it, or how did you approach it? Did you break it down? Was it the Joel death scene in the lodge? Was it, because I think it's so fascinating when Ellie comes in the middle, and then obviously you kind of switch to Ellie's point of view.
Yeah.
So you really feel that kind of emotional, their relationship that's been fractured, and it's beautifully done.
Yeah.
How did you approach?
Well, we knew when Ellie comes in the room, we wanted to show it from her perspective. I think before then, obviously the main scene is between Abby and Joel, but it is important, I feel, to, sort of see what the other characters are feeling and reacting. But as soon as Ellie comes in, it's really just about, what she sees, what she experiences. And, but yeah, as far we didn't storyboard it, we didn't shot list it. Mark actually hates shot listing. So it was really just like the biggest question was just, you know, who wants to start this scene, and Bella was like, I want to do my performance, you know, top of the day, like, you know, and so we did that, and I think that was great because then, you know, they got it out of the way, and then we could do all the sort of fiddly bits with the Nick and, you know, all that crap. So yeah, and the crane shot was definitely last, and that was something that, you know, it was actually, to shoot in the real location did inspire that shot, because of course, you know, I was looking up at this amazing height that the place had and wondering, like, are we ever going to appreciate this? Are we ever going to notice this? So much of what we're talking about doing is being down with the characters, and just, you know, that was everything we talked about. And but it did seem like the end just needed like a breath and a moment of sort of stepping back, and yeah, so I pitched it to Mark, and he was into it. So we did that, and it was a great sort of like seg into the end montage or whatever, which, speaking of montages, we can seg into your opening montage and then we can come back if we want, but yeah, because your opening montage is breathtaking, Nicola, and I was so happy this was also my third time seeing it on the big screen, and it's just, every shot in there is absolutely stunning, and yeah, I want you to talk about, you know, how you approached that and how that worked. And
thank you. It was, I mean, the scripts for Handmaids are stunning. You know, they're just written, they're very atmospheric, and they are beautifully written. And so a lot of inspiration comes directly from the scripts. References we had for the beginning were All Quiet on the Western Front has a beautiful sequence of clothes being recycled, and the dead sort of, and the clothes coming back. And so Dana, who directed this, and I looked at that, and we looked at Phantom Thread, and then we actually got loads of inspiration from the real location, which was the laundry, which doesn't look, you know, it's lit with horrible fluoros everywhere, so we just turned a lot of those off and gave it the Handmaids look. But there was so many great machines, and the only shot is in the studio is the vat at the very beginning. So it's sort of a huge theme throughout this whole season. I did 5 out of 10 episodes of the last season. Is this idea of the clothes and the Handmaid's army and that colour of red, and the sort of blood and the destruction and the revolution. And so it's kind of, it was almost an encapsulation of the thematics of the whole season. So it was really, it's very
so
fun to
stunning,
shoot.
and like you just appreciate so much the sort of like graphic nature of the whole thing, and it's almost like this abstract art ballet at times, like when they're all sort of sitting down in the row. And I just thought, yeah, it was so amazing.
Yeah, we have a lot of Leni Riefenstahl influences, which has always been the, you know, sort of very consistent throughout the whole of Handmaids. There's a lot of top shots, and there's David Lester, who actually got to direct episode 3 that I shot this time. He's been on since the beginning, and he's done different roles, and he's been a third AD, and they call him the Handmaid Whisperer. So he's the guy that makes them walk in exactly time and go to the sides exactly at the right time.
That's
and
so cool.
He's, yeah. So it was really beautiful that he got to direct episode 3 this time, because he was such a huge fan. He's sort of the one that you go to if you go, you know, when they got married before in season 2, these characters, did they have a priest? And he'll go, yeah, they have a high commander who wore this, and he knows, like, he's like an encyclopedia of Handmaids.
Cool. So wait, speaking of walking in time, because I know you said Lizzie Moss really likes music, so would you shoot some stuff like that to music so that they can know, like, is it like a dance? Or
not so much when Dana directed, but when Lizzie directs, I did 3 episodes with her last season and 2 this season, and she often has picked her music before, and she wears a little earbud while if we're doing a Steadicam Warner and she'll actually also send that music list to the operator, who's an amazing operator called Brett Hurd, and he will often have an earbud in while he's operating, listening to the track that she's listening to. So they kind of have this amazing simpatico relationship. And when he was on season 5, he was doing B camera when I started, and then in season 5 we just kept trying to make him do all the A camera shots because he's so good and he feels what the actors are doing. He can really, like, he's there, he's a character, and so we bumped him up to A camera this season, and it's a joy. It's, you know, he's a beautiful operator, but he can also get in like the tiniest spaces and do things I could never do. So it's he just did American Primeval, which I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's like crazy handheld shots. So yeah, he's pretty amazing. But music is like, yeah.
Yeah. No, integral. I mean, it seemed so, and like, because the piece as well up front with that montage seemed so, like, did you guys know what that was before?
No, they had another piece of music, I think, which was a bit more sort of jarring, and then they landed on, I think it's Radiohead National Anthem. So yeah. But let's talk about the big battle.
Oh, God. Okay.
How did you... Well, first of all, smaller question, Katie. How... Because it's so tense, that episode. Did you and Mark talk about how you would... Like... and I think, actually, this is something that we share.
We can both talk about it, yeah.
We... Katie and I talk a lot about, like, the tropes of the horror film. Because, actually, Handmaids isn't a horror... You know, some people say it's a horror film, but we often use the tropes of a horror film, and you guys do too, even though it's grounded in that reality.
Yeah.
So how did you and Mark talk about tension with the camera?
Yeah, I'm sure we did talk about it with the camera. I can't remember. You know, like the Abby sequence where she's, you know, falling down the cliff, and then, you know, she lifts her head and you pull back and you see that hand. You know, that's like a perfect example, I think, about what you're talking about. And
yeah, that beautiful pull back and the hand is in the foreground.
Yeah, yeah. So that sequence, truth be told, was prevised before we showed up. And that was because they were trying to figure out how many visual effects shots were in it. They also prevised most of the, I think actually all of the battle was prevised too. And then because the battle had so many VFX shots, we actually wound up figuring out how to do a lot of the Abby sequence in camera, which made it like my favorite to do, really, because we actually went up a mountain. She actually, you know, she's on a sled or whatever, but she's actually sliding down the mountain. You know, those are actual. I mean, when she lands and it's a bunch of dead ones, those are prosthetics, obviously. But then when the horde busts out and starts chasing her, you know, that's just a lot of stunt people that we brought up this mountain.
You guys must have the most amazing stunt department.
Amazing stunt department. Yeah. Yeah, they're insane and really, really cool to work with because they're like a very collaborative team as well. Marnie Eng's the coordinator, and yeah, she has such an awesome team. And basically it was like, you know, that shot down the mountain is a perfect example on the sled, because we were like, oh, well, we want to do this. And, you know, she has a stunt rigger who's like an alpine guy, and he was like, okay, cool. And he just, you know, on the Scout, we sort of showed him where, and he just went marching up the hill and figured out where he could put wires and how he could run the sled. And, you know, and we said, okay, well, we want to do many shots, not many, but we want to do a few different ones. And so he figured out, you know, how to put the two sleds, the operator and hers, together, how to make them go separately so we could let her go. We came back the next day, they had rigged them totally separately so we could do that sort of crossing shot, you know, for more speed. So they were just like down to do, you know, whatever.
So like any shots you guys thought of, they were...
They everybody on that show, what's really cool about working on The Last of Us is like everybody on that show loves the show so much and will give like 150% to any idea you have. And, you know, so it's pretty cool. So anyway, in the mountains with anyway, in the end, it was like 600 people went up this mountain every day and like got into snowcats and snowmobiles, and it was insane. It was like Mad Max on snow for a week. And to do all the, everything, all the second, because we had 3 units basically. We had second unit and then a little splinter unit to do some other stuff. And so, yeah, it was cool. But I'm definitely getting off on a tangent because you asked me about tension, and you should talk about tension also.
Before we get to me, though, let's talk about the abbey and the fence and how did you do that, and tell us the intricacies of that.
Okay, well, yeah, so this, I alluded to it before, this is like a specific moment in the game that everybody says is just so claustrophobic and scary, where, the infected come out of nowhere and then this fence just lowers and lowers and lowers, and you're getting, you're playing as Abby and you're getting crushed. And so everybody really wanted it to feel like that. And obviously, for me, I was just thinking like, well, what camera can it be, and how can we keep moving with her? Because she's, army crawling, and obviously we wanted it as low as it could possibly go. And so in the end, the solution we came to was the Ronin 4D, which is a very small camera gimbal combined on the end of this telescopic arm, this small, it's called an F27, and you can take it off the base and lay it on the snow. And so it's very low profile. And so that's how we did it. But it does remind me of your shot with the cake, which is another low profile sneaky crane shot.
Yeah, we had, there's an amazing guy in Toronto called Mike Darby, and he builds specific grip stuff that you might want. So he'd built, for another episode we had, he built as a descender rig that went through a massive staircase up and down. But we mounted out, we shoot on Arri Minis. We put our Arri Mini there, but he built a very low profile crane specifically for the under the pew shot. And then art department built specific pews that were doubles but had slightly higher arch. So there was a lot of discussion about how big can we go without it looking fake, and the size of the cake and the scale of the cake and the scale of the thing. But it was... was
it big cake or just regular cake?
No, it's just regular cake. But
okay.
yeah, I mean, when it comes out and they wheel it out, it's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big cake.
In fact, it looks like someone's going to jump out of it. But yeah, there was a lot of sort of trying to plan. Dana, who directed this episode, just loves to move the camera. And so she also didn't like to shot list. So it's kind of, you had to light everywhere. And then she liked to sort of move around. The one that I really enjoy is when, and it's a good example of not doing coverage, is when Wharton and Serena come out of the limousine after they've got married, and they come in the house. At some point, the Guardian says you've got a present in there, which is a handmaid. So we didn't do any coverage of that. So
I love that shot. I loved it on my television home, but I loved it even more here somehow, because you can just appreciate so much more the depth of that shot, and when they come in and you come around, and it's really wonderful.
Dana wanted it sort of to sweep around as if you were romantically in love with them, and then you get this harsh reality of the handmaid being in the background. She does actually appear before that, but they had to rub her out in VFX because it was kind of
I'm glad they did that.
a giveaway. Yeah,
so, no, it's a nice reveal.
Yeah, but they told me before I worked with Dana, they said she wants to see everything and she wants to go take it out there and follow you all the way down the corridor and around. So I was kind of prepared to light everything.
It's a fun challenge, I feel, though, because that's the same with this show. Like, I had obviously been on House of the Dragon just before this, and yes, that's also a big HBO 3-camera show with some action, and it's fantasy, whatever, but it's shot so differently, and the way and your approach to lighting is so different. And on this, it's definitely like you want to create the right mood, the right atmosphere, and then you throw 3 handheld cameras on it, and they play basically, and that's, which is just so hugely different.
Is House of the Dragons more kind of like not wide shot close up, but is it more like in a just certain direction and then?
I would say like, yeah, the approach is much more traditional and and beauty lighting is, because they all live in castles and, like they have gorgeous clothes and the light has to come in. And so it's much more like that. And it was like, you're like, nobody's ever asking you to make it look beautiful. Like some things can be beautiful, but it's like an ugly sort of beautiful, which I found really fun, actually, really freeing.
Are there any things that you learnt off House of Dragons or off this one that you now carry forward into your work? Is there any little...
Oh man, I'm sure there is. We didn't talk about this ahead of time.
Sorry, I'm just like throwing questions at Katie now.
We talked about some of what we're going to talk about.
I can answer my own question if you like, and then you can have time to think.
Okay.
To answer my question, when I started, the gaffer on Handmaids is amazing, and in fact he's just transitioning into shooting now in Toronto, and he introduced me to grey silks. So they make them in Canada. They're like mid-grey, and they are just so beautiful. So they kind of take the spectral highlights out of the big white sauce that you might have had before. And so I love them so much now that I bought a set of them and I now carry them around on everything. So Handmaids taught me that. Yeah,
it's funny. We did that trick on House of Dragons season 2 for all the wigs, right? Because season 1, in the grade we're just like constantly taking down the sheen on all the white wigs, and so season 2 we did lots of black silks on all the soft boxes. But I brought that to Last of Us and taught them that.
And did the gaffer, was he into that?
Yeah, totally, 100%. Oh man, I mean, I'm sure I learned tons of. I mean, honestly, like I hadn't done so much like cross coverage, since like documentary. You know what I mean? Like it was a whole different sort of way of doing it. So.
Were you cross shooting on this? Because you mentioned you had 3 cameras, but how were you? Did you have was there a pattern that you fell into with the 3 cameras, or how did it?
Well, every scene was different. I mean, but yes, I mean, generally speaking, so the week at Joel's was definitely our first week. We got a little warm up scene, which was the scene where Jesse wakes Ellie up so anyway, tiny scene just to like get it going. And that's like a perfect example of like, we didn't shot list it, but it's 2 people at a door, so it's going to happen. But then Mark was like, oh, but you can cross shoot it, right, Katie? And I was like, oh, sure.
Dope.
But that was day 1. And so we did it. And then that became, so, it's like, Joel's performance, Abby's performance, Ellie's performance, no, right? Like those are dedicated shots. But a lot of other stuff. I mean, Jesse and Ellie in the 7-Eleven, that's all cross shot. I'm trying to think what else is in this episode.
And how do you approach that with the lighting?
Obviously, the thing is nothing can be on the floor anyway, really. So you're just making sure, like the 7-Eleven is a set. And so, so I'm making sure that there's windows in the right places, honestly, is I think the main thing. And then, they're sitting around a fire, so you have that as a source. Like, so that one was all right. I mean, I don't know. You just, I don't know. This is the problem when I don't actually know how I do this stuff. I just do it.
You just make it work.
Yeah. But speaking of lighting, we haven't yet talked about the amazing church and how the hell you lit that.
Yeah, a lot of lamps. I think there were 16 18Ks and 11 LRX pars outside. So there's a lot of light. I mean, that church is huge. It's got it's not just got the one big windows down the side. It's got like a double layer of windows. So the lights had to sort of come. And because it's Serena's wedding, so it's kind of interesting because in season 5 I did Fred's funeral, and so now I get to do Serena's wedding. So it's kind of but a bit of both. So, and actually for the funeral in season 5, we looked at Prince Philip's funeral as a state funeral, as a reference. Because Gilead, you would have noticed in the wedding, there's Gilead cameras, and that was kind of a story point in the funeral, was that she was broadcasting this funeral to the world to show off. She's got very big ego, Serena, and so it kind of follows through to this one. But yeah, Princess dies, you know. And Prince Charles's wedding was a reference. So it's supposed to be, obviously, a very huge, you know, state wedding. And we had 3 cameras in there. We had 2 days and a drone. We just flew a little drone, the new 4. The only trouble we had actually was that we couldn't get too close to Serena because her train started to fly up, that big dress and the big train, and the drone was like, and so she looked like she was kind of levitating down the aisle. So, but as long as he stayed, I mean, the church was so huge. But it's supposed to, you know, the look of the design of the lighting is very Gilead, very beams of light, very majestic and very weird Busby Berkeley choreographed.
I love the like wide lensing and the low angles where you have the 2 people and then you see the whole space. And I also loved that the light came in and highlighted the handmaids as well. And I assume that's part of the design. And
yeah, because the handmaids are secretively hiding these knives that they're then going to kill the commanders with. It's amazing, I think, as a cinematographer, when you have a whole sequence that doesn't have any dialogue. I always love that when I see that in a script, because I'm like, yay.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in Handmaids. They talk to you about Handmaids. I think it was a friend of Lizzie's said once he always knows it's Handmaids. He was sitting on a plane and he's somebody watching their screen down there, and they're watching Handmaid's Tale. And he knew exactly what was going on without any sound or any headphones. Great. And that's kind of what Handmaids is. And so one of the amazing things about working on the show is Elizabeth is such a great leader, and she's kind of the producing director overseeing everything. So everything gets run past her, the shot lists, storyboards. And so you can sort of sit down with her, and I do this a bit actually on every project I do, but I say things like, could we move, do you really need that line? Or wouldn't the scene end here? Or this scene feels like it has a double ending beat? Because I feel like when I've imagined the whole episode or the whole film put together, that I can see where the ups and downs are. I'm doing it on a film. The production designer this week was calling me a script editor. So I was like, oh, we don't really need that, do you? And obviously you have to feel out your director and see how, you know, malleable they are to those things before you go in saying, this scene that you've spent 6 months writing, you don't need that. But that's the great thing about Handmaid's Tale, is you can kind of have input into. When I first started working on the show, I sat in a room with Bradley Whitford and Elizabeth Moss, and they were talking about characters and journeys, and that's kind of my favourite thing to do, because the camera, to me, should always be where the story is and where the character's journey is. So I was sort of sitting in a room pinching myself going, I can't believe I'm here. So
yeah, well, it's so amazing to, yeah. Anyway, it's perfect fit, basically. I think and the show is wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
How are we doing for time?
I don't know.
Oh, no.
We're good. We're good. What else should we talk about? Did you get to talk about the tension thing, or did I just take it off on a tangent talking about hordes and
right.
mountains? And
we really ramped it up in when she goes to kill Commander Bell. So that was a scene that we really talked about, it being like a horror film where she's sneaking around the house and, you know, the fire flicker, and then, you know, sort of he's there and he wakes up. And I think, like you were saying, Katie, a lot of it is looking for the right locations too. You know, like you were saying, even if it's the set design looking, that was a location. So we looked at a lot of houses for that.
I love the like super reflective counter with the light, and anyway, it's a gorgeous sequence. I love how you lit it as well.
I like the LEDs under the stairs. We talked a lot about him being like a new sort of guard of commander. So he had a bit more of a Nova Riche house, like a kind of, a little bit too much money, not enough taste. But those pendants that existed in the house, so it was just a really nice, one of those happy accidents that happens when Lizzie comes around and then she's kind of got this angel of death,
Yeah, it was awesome.
halo on. It's kind of one of those things where you all look at it and go, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. And that scene too, I remember we talked about like just approach to violence, because obviously that is also something that both of our shows have in common. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's so interesting when you do a show like this, and then I like to read the fans' reactions to stuff when it comes out. And a lot of them are like, oh, we should have seen more commanders get killed. But I like that kind of Handmaid subtle, you see that, you follow the knife and then you see the girl and you see the commander in bed. It's a much more Handmaids, on the internet they're all saying it's going to be the red wedding, but it's so not. They all go to sleep because they eat cake. So maybe some fans were a little disappointed, but yeah, I think Handmaids is a lot more, sort of subtle than that.
Well, it's evocative and it makes you use your imagination. And I mean, because this was something that I asked, Craig on The Last of Us when I met for the first time, because I also have, sort of strong opinions about violence and I knew that the second game was, spoken about and written about much more violent than the first, because I didn't play them. So I asked him about that approach, and he was very clear that, like, yes, obviously there's violence in this world, and it is what the show is about in a way, but we find it's much more scary to play a lot of that stuff off screen, so that you're seeing the person's reaction to the violence, and I think. I think Joel's death is it could have been handled a million different ways, and I think you can feel the sort of reserve and the focus on Ellie and how she's experiencing it.
And it's so tense when Tommy's fighting the bit, I don't know what you call the big mushroom guy.
Bloater. He's a bloater.
He's a bloater. Oh, there we go. Tell us about the battle. You said Mark didn't like to shotlist, but did you previs the big battle?
Yeah, the battle had to be basically shotlisted. I mean, yeah, it was previs when we got there. Like I said, we were able to obviously, same with the Abbey sequence, edit it, add our own shots, go back to storyboards for some stuff. And so it was always a sort of like work in progress type thing, but it was really helpful for the battle because obviously, there's just so many logistical things you have to figure out for a sequence like that. And you have to figure out what's second unit and what's main unit. And, when do you need all the horde? When don't you need them? So we had the most wonderful first AD, Dan Miller, and he and his team and the second, we worked closely with second unit as well to just sort of figure out that dance. And we were often shooting, in tandem. So on the same backlot set, like if we were doing the bloater, say, and Tommy, then they would be, doing some stuff at the wall with the horde. And so we also obviously then had to figure out, sun cover, because again, we were doing that with construction cranes and blackouts, but again, that's very expensive and difficult to move. And so just to figure out who needed what and where, and that we wouldn't be like shooting on top of each other and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
And you were telling me you were exploring like a big silk over the top, a la Dion BB. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, so when I first got there, I had this idea, which is obviously I'm stealing it from Dion BB, to silk the entire set because I knew that we were shooting there for, I think, practically 2 weeks, and then second unit had more work. And, to sell the snowstorm is really the visual challenge, I feel, of the whole thing. And so anyway, but we had talked to Dion. Do you remember? Did you do that Q&A?
Yeah, I think it was during lockdown?
During lockdown, yeah, we had a little Eliminatrix Q&A with him. And so I was able to write to him and say, you know, I have this thing I'm trying to do, and, you know, do you think I could talk to your grip? And so his rigging grip got on a call with my grips, and, you know, and explained their whole process, which was really generous. And so we did make a plan. We had really different circumstances, honestly. Like, they were able to design their whole system in conjunction with the set design, which by the time we got there, the set was already half built. Their set was smaller than ours. Our set was also built in a place called Manatee Bay, which my Q grip told me on day one. Manatee means something like the windy place in whatever language that is, First Nations language. So I was like, okay. And anyway, so there were challenges to overcome, but the main reason why we didn't do it was money. I mean, time and money. So in the end, we had to do it, you know, with construction cranes. And I honestly think because, you know, we had so much work on the rooftops as well. Like, I think it would have been, it probably would have been quite tricky. And, you know, and fire, like, we lit a whole building on fire. So those things are like maybe reasons not to do it.
Little safety
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
And talk to me about going up a mountain. Obviously, Jackson Hole is a set down with some fake snow and real snow.
That's all. It's all fake snow, actually.
All fake snow. Okay.
In the town set, because we didn't get any snow there. So yeah, that's all fake. But go ahead.
But going up a mountain for the ski lodge is Alberta, right? Is that right?
So
just the logistics of you and your crew and how you did that and what you could take.
So that was tricky because like I said before, we were up in the mountains where literally every morning, you know, like, there's a base camp where you can park the trucks, and then everything else has to go into snowmobiles and snowcats, and so it was definitely a logistical feat as well, and we had to be there for. Anyway, our time there was capped as well, because if we had stayed and shot past 8 days, then we would have had to hire an entirely new Albertan crew, because we were based in Vancouver, and we wanted to take our Vancouver crew, and that has to do with unions. So we were really trying to cram it in. So that's part of the reason why we brought, you know, 3 units, and we're really just going for it. And also, you know, we were trying to keep an eye on the weather and have some kind of weather buffer, which between you and me, we really didn't have. We got really, really lucky because, I mean, you know, another person who I called up in a panicky sweat was Mandy Walker, because, you know, again, she had talked to us about the mountain between us, and I said, what did you take for sun control? And she said, nothing. You can't take anything. There's no machines. There's no, you know, it's too windy, no cloud balloons. So you're just completely exposed to the elements. And, you know, so anyway, we got really lucky.
It's a bit nerve-wracking.
It was nerve-wracking, yeah. But everything else, obviously, like, that's from a lighting perspective. From a camera perspective, it was amazing because everything we brought, you know, was on snow tracks, and, you know, so we had, you know, 50-foot techno on snow tracks, and we had a tracking vehicle, and so that was all, like, really, honestly, quite smooth, although it does take more time, and there was a real blizzard. But
and they're Canadians, so they
know.
They're so hearty.
They know. And they know what to do to keep the camera warm. You know, like, people have asked me before, like, you know, how did the cameras function? And it's like they had these little warmers on them the whole time that just completely enclosed them so that we were never stopped down for anything like that. So it was cool.
It looks really cold.
Yeah, it was actually cold.
In terms of how you worked with Mark, did you have references, or were there any, like, photography or music, or was there anything that you discussed before you started with him?
There were, and I knew you were going to ask me that, and I still forgot to remind myself what anything was, because I just...
He'd done season 1, right?
No. He was new to the show, and he was, like, fresh off Succession. So one of the things that we thought was sort of funny was, like, I mean, not funny, haha, but interesting, was, like, that this show in terms of look was like a mix of, like, you know, the handheld nature of Succession, but also, like, you know, much more like, you know, you're creating a world, right? So the production design aspect of it and the yeah, the prosthetics, the stunt, all that stuff is much more in the House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones world. So he had done he had done Game of Thrones, Mark. Right. But yeah, references. I remember we watched. There was a really specific World War II movie whose name I cannot remember, but Craig actually referenced it a bunch because it's like a siege type situation where they're like, and I think, the part where the guy is like looking with the binoculars, like that's like literally like, in the World War II movie, like the same thing, like, Out of the Mist. So we watched that, and we watched some Westerns as well, because it also has that kind of vibe of like, maybe like Fort Apache or something where, the townsfolk are all trying to like protect their colony.
The siege.
Yeah, exactly. More siege stuff.
Craig is obviously Katie and I were sort of discussing about how different showrunners are, and every show it's different, isn't it? They're different. Involvement. Is Craig's obviously very involved.
Very involved, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. They're the, executive producers, creators, writers. But it's Craig who, because Neil has this whole other job running a video game company because he made the game. So Craig, this is Craig's baby. Craig is 100% ever present, and so it's very much his show. But that just means that, I think it's a strength, obviously, because ultimately, like, the whole, even though it's like a different director for every episode, which I know we also could talk about, the show is very much in his voice.
Very consistent over the whole 2 seasons.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Because it is 5:45. Do people have questions, or should we just keep gabbing?
Please, ask some.
Okay, There is a hand, and there is a mic.
There's a microphone coming to you.
Thank you. Both absolutely amazing looking shows, and both quite intense, but like absolutely spot on photography and the camera work on both. Just a quick question, lighting for Nicola. Those hoods that they wear, was that a real pain in the ass to get, because you got such beautiful lighting and exposure under those hoods, and there was no ugly shadows that you'd expect? Because I think you said you had to light all over the place because of the lack of shot listing or whatever. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, they are a bit of a pain. There's a lot of, you can kind of see it in her eye light. There's a lot of Astera tubes. Actually, what my gaffer had worked out was that he could take a pool noodle that you float with in the pool, a white one, not a coloured one, cut it in half and stick it on a Astera tube. So I would often say, bring in the pool noodle. And so there's a lot of pool noodles, like sort of just under the pews in the church, for example. And then lots of poly, lots of bounce, just for Lizzie when she's walking through the streets. And there was a lot of discussion about what that I don't know what you call it, like the mask that they were going to wear to be hidden. Was originally it was going to be like, just an eye slit, and Elizabeth Moss was like, I can't just act with, that tiny bit. So they came to this thing. So it's just a lot of like, actually what we also do on that show, which is interesting, is they built like little soft boxes with 216 on the front, and they can dim them down. And there's a really good Spark who walks around and does like, he sort of fades on and fades off, and so we do a lot of that stuff, and that sort of helps the continually moving shots. There'll often be like 2 guys come in with soft boxes that dim up, and then so it's a bit of a ballet. Any other questions? Here we go.
Evie.
Yes, I just want to compliment you both on the amount of light you're using. No, honestly, it's beautifully done, because very often it's overlit, and I personally don't like this. So I know how hard that is not to overlight. It's beautifully done. Both of you, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I thought especially yours on the big screen, like how dark it was awesome, like really good.
The Handmaids does embrace the darkness, and that when I first started, the gaffer said, you know, the LUT, we call it the vampire LUT, and it just sucks a lot of light, but it's sort of been consistent throughout. Obviously, we then throw the LUT away and grade it, and Bill, who grades Handmaids, has been on since the pilot, so he is an amazing asset. Like, he just knows, because that red of that, you know, the Handmaid's dresses is a very particular red, and so you sort of spend a lot of time, you know, lighting, giving it a little tungsten hit or something just to flash. You can see it when that girl goes through the knife in the bedroom. She walks through tiny little bits of tungsten, and that's just to give you that red flash because the dress is so important. But yeah, Bill is amazing, because he's just, when I first started on the show, he was invaluable, because I was obviously new.
Yeah, but it's nice you don't see the light. And that's so beautiful about it. I mean, obviously in the background, you know, in the church and everything, wonderful, you know, but not on the faces. And that's so nice. Both of the episodes, sorry, English, both of the episodes we've seen now. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one back there.
It's okay. Hi. I'm curious. Both of you in your shows each have like massive action set pieces. So in the Handmaid's Tale, you've got Fred's funeral and eventually the gallows, where everything basically goes to shit. And then obviously you've got the village that goes to shit as well. And it seems to me when I'm listening to you guys speak that both of your directors are not people who like to meticulously plan out how you're going to do the coverage, how the camera's going to move, even though you've got all these massive action pieces where you've got a lot of characters focus. So I'm wondering then what your relationship is with the edit. Like, how do you know you've got what you need for the edit, or do you guys get notes back from the edit team, and like, what's that relationship in terms of, have you got enough of the kinds of characters that they need to tell the whole show, to tell the whole story?
Yeah, it is an interesting question. So the editor on our episode 2 is Timothy Good, who did a lot on season 1, and we definitely were talking to Tim, you know, ahead of time about what our plans were. And I don't think he cut the previs though, but he was definitely, you know, the previs is like a cut. It's like a movie, but animated. So everybody was sort of watching that and understanding, you know, that the pace of the edit was really important. And, you know, my personal opinion is it's just like breakneck pace basically. And so to do that, yeah, you do need, you know, not just like visually compelling shots, which is obviously what I want to be doing, but also just sheer quantity. And so, you know, so that's why, you know, like we're a 3-camera show, the 3-camera show normally, but for example, like when the horde comes around the corner and is running down Main Street, we shot that with 5 cameras. And that was simply because, I mean, not only was it quantity, but also just like we could only have a horde so big for so much time, and you really want to maximize that time. And you know, we wanted to do it for real as few times as possible as well. So with 5 cameras, I can put 2 up on the roof. So one's with Maria, and then one is down on the ground with Tommy, and you know, we're scattering the others around the place, and you know, one's on a long lens and one's so yeah. So I think all of that is important for action. You know, I think you do need oftentimes, yeah, quantity.
And obviously, Katie, you're thinking about which lenses you're going to use, because you've got that sort of foreground rushing, or you've got them hitting it's like visceral, isn't it, when they hit the wood on the outside, and that sort of choice of lenses is super important for you. Which lenses do you use on?
So season 2 we shot, well, I should say season 1 is Mini and Cook S4s, and we came to do season 2, Ksenia Sereda, who shot the pilot of season 1 and the pilot for season 2, updated the camera to the Alexa 35, which I was psyched about, and did a modification on the Cook S4s, so they became Cook S4Xs, they're called. So basically the modification was to take the iris and make it perfectly round. So that the bokeh could be round and the lenses, some of them were a tiny bit faster.
And why did she do that? Was it because of, the game?
I think, to be honest, I never asked her. But, when I saw her first episode, she has this very iconic scene, which is in the game, which is Ellie and Dina's first kiss, which they refer to here on this dance floor. And in the game, there's all these like Christmas lights. And so I don't know whether, it was just for that scene alone. But when I saw that scene, it sort of all made sense to me, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
There was someone else. Yes.
Sorry, could I ask you something on this?
Yeah, sure. Cool. Yeah, that was beautiful work. Thank you for sharing that. I have a question predominantly aimed at you, Catherine, but actually, seeing as you've both worked on game adaptations, it's perfectly applicable. I just wanted to get a little bit of an insight with your process with how you might have dealt with the pressure of having such an established franchise come, and then how you chose to construct that visual language, whilst also potential if there's any pressure from the outside, from the game developers themselves or the fan base even.
Well, yeah, I mean, Neil Druckmann, who made the game, he's part of the show as well. So it's all one thing, which is good. So I think, Craig and Neil are definitely on the same page as far as what the look should be, and where the script deviates from the game is intentional, and and everybody sort of treats the show like really it's its own thing, with its own sort of driving narrative thrust, even though again it is very close to the game, but it does do some things differently. So I think that because they're doing that on the page, that's sort of the expectation with the visuals, that some scenes, like I said, the Abby Fence one is a perfect example. Like, they want us to watch the game. They want it to look like the game. They want it to feel like the game. And some stuff has, the entire Battle of Jackson is actually not in the game. So it's referred to, but because you don't get to play as Tommy or Maria, you can't ever be in Jackson for the battle. Wow. So that's where the show is really fun, because suddenly it opens up all these other viewpoints. But yeah, yes, it's pressure. I would say like the specific pressure of shooting episode 2 is about Joel's death, because obviously that's, like we talked about before, a huge emotional moment for, it was for people who played the game, and it was again for people who watched the show. And so we were prepared for people to hate us, basically. This is what we had to go to work every day thinking about.
Just to answer your question as well, on Halo there was a lot of pressure. I think I did see the end of season 2, so season 1 looked a different way, and then they changed showrunners, and then he kind of wanted it to look completely different, in a lot more sort of gritty, handheld, rooted in reality way than season 1 had done. So in a sort of Generation Kill, if you ever remember that series, like that kind of war, you feel like you're right there. So it took a massive departure. There's a lot of pressure on that show from the fans, because there's certain tropes of that show that the TV show does, like takes off Master Chief's helmet a lot, and the fans don't like that. So it is fun to read the comments. Yeah.
Do you find it like restrictive or enabling to be in that framework?
I'm not really a gamer, so it was kind of a new world to me, and I always wanted to do a sci-fi. So it was kind of fun to be, it's not window light, it's light from anywhere that moves in a crazy way, or whatever, whatever it was. It was kind of when they reached Halo, what it looked like, and so it was kind of freeing. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't think I feel it's particularly restrictive, because, well, first of all, I like the source material. I didn't play the game, but I watched the game, and when I watched the game, I was so struck at how cinematic it is, and how emotional it is, and how I could just sit there and watch it play out. I was shocked, actually, that I found it engaging. And so, so that plus, as I said before, like you can just feel everybody, the people who work on the show who have played the game, you can just sort of like their love like sort of radiates off. So my second episode on the show, I worked with Kate Herron was directing, and she loved the game and played the games, and and she different from me, who went into my interview being like, I haven't played anything since Mario Kart. So, but Kate was like, this is I'm so into this, and what I want to bring to this is like, when we shot the guitar scene in episode 4, she was so like, we're watching that scene from the game, we're recreating that scene from the game. This is so important to me to do that.
So beautiful.
And but every director was different. Mark had never played the game. Nina, my last director, didn't play the game. So it's like, I think that's all by design, is like it's interesting to have some people who like have it so rooted in their brains, and other people whose minds can be sort of more open to new possibilities. How are we doing? Anyone else?
One more. Should we do one more question?
Let's do one more, and then there's time for drinks.
And then we'll have a drink.
Amazing work, both of you. Thank you. It's really great to hear all of your stories behind it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, just thinking about, I suppose specifically for Nicola, that your relationship with the production designer, and because that world had been created so carefully and crafted and joining in on that. And you were saying that it was a mixture of locations and obviously sets. So when you were talking about the Nouveau Riche location where the commander gets killed, you've got that amazing stair lights, the LEDs under the stairs, but quite pale walls. What is pale in the Handmaid's Tales sort of swatch? Is it actually a mid-tone, or same again with the dresses? I suppose all that kind of colour.
People who work with me get really bored of me saying, I hate white, take white out, please no white. I mean, they're like, Nicola's like a broken record, but I always just find it looks flat, and you have to work a lot harder to give it shape. And then obviously, as all you guys know, you put one light up, it bounces everywhere, then you've got to spend a lot more time cutting it and shaping it. And I'd much prefer a wood-panelled room. But obviously, some locations, dictate that. In fact, I think this entire episode is locations.
Was the red center?
Yeah,
that's the location too.
That's a location. Yeah, the sets. There used to be a few more like Gilead houses that were sets that have been standing for a long time, and then I don't know if you guys have seen this new series, but it goes to New Bethlehem, which is kind of a Gilead light. So that was like a whole new world. So we kind of had Lizzie and the production designer and I all had a big conversation about what New Bethlehem was and what that would look like. And so that was, so the great thing about Handmaids is it's got those old worlds, but it's, since she's been free in season 4, it's got a whole bunch of new worlds as well. So it's kind of fun to get your teeth into the new ones. But New Bethlehem was very Truman Show-esque. So that was kind of more, pastel's the wrong word, but it was lighter in tone, and it was by the sea and by the beach. And so it's kind of fun to take the commanders to the beach.
And are the bonnets, are they white or they're off-white?
They're white.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Since the beginning.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so
Thank
much
you
for
so
spending
much.
your Saturday. And yeah, we're going to have a drink, so talk to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.